Debate by giving the floor to the rapporteur. Without further ado, he has 6 minutes speaking time. Mr. Bové. Thank you very much, President, Commissioner and colleagues. First of all, I should like to thank all my colleagues from the Agriculture Committee very warmly, most particularly the shadow rapporteurs who have given me considerable support in doing all this work. This is part of a major debate on the reform of the CAP, as in Mr. Lyon's report. And we have been able to make agreement on a lot of compromise amendments which were adopted by 32-4 in the committee. So I welcome that. I think our committee message is absolutely clear. We want greater transparency in the food chain, and we want legislation on competition to ensure fair competition amongst all players on the farm scene. And we want to have resolute action both in Europe and beyond against speculation in the market, abusive dominant position, and the detrimental effects that this has on farmers, especially small farmers. There have been some initiatives taken by certain groups in this Parliament requesting that we should vote on a lot of split votes tomorrow when we vote on the report. Now, this flies in the face of the consensual approach in the committee, which I was very happy to see. I wonder whether over the course of the summer you've changed your minds or something. I think that the intensive lobbying which has gone on over the recent days on the part of the agroalimentary industry, the food industry, has perhaps been a little more than rhetorical. I can hardly imagine, colleagues, that at this juncture you are honestly going to give in to these blandishments and are genuinely going to undermine and water down our common message to the farmers of Europe. We want to have real measures, convincing and effective measures. We've lost 3.5 million jobs in the farm sector. Prices are falling. In Bulgaria, for example, 1 out of 2 small farmers have lost their livelihoods. In 2009, the food prices and incomes collapsed. Livelihoods collapsed. In France and Germany, 20% decline in industry, in the farm industry. In Hungary, the incomes have gone down 30%. So the farm sector as a whole, and indeed the rural environment, are threatened at their very existence. Therefore, we have to see that the action we take will have a serious effect on farmers across the board, the milk sector and also beyond. We will affect all the sectors. We will also be affecting those working upstream and downstream. Since 2005, the added value generated by the farm sector has gone down from 31 to 24%. The prices paid to farmers have gone down right across the whole spectrum, but the consumers have not gained anything. The Commission has said that these problems result from excessive concentration in the area of distribution and wholesalers and have tried to impose their will on these industries, but absolutely not effectively to the slightest. It is simply a case of the smaller producers being squeezed and all suppliers of large-scale supermarkets being squeezed too. It is vital that we recognise that we need some effective, resolute action because there has to be change. I would therefore like to say to the Commission that I think we should be looking towards what is done in America. We should have an observatory for markets and prices so that we can look at the cost of production for farmers. We can look at their actual production costs of, for example, a kilo of wheat or beef or a litre of milk. And we can then see what the prices actually should be when farmers are negotiating with the distributors and producers and sellers. And this would avoid the exploitation that we see. It would mean that more of the added value went to the farmers and that the consumers would also benefit. And at that point, the Commission would be in a position to scale back the abusive dominant position which occurs far too often in the market. It is absolutely vital that we look at what is going on in the sector because too many very large firms have got far too much power, a dominant position in a market, so there is no fairness in the market and there is no transparency, and there is huge price volatility and other fluctuations in the market too, mirroring what's been going on in the finance sector in some areas. So whether you're talking about milk or you're talking about beef or cereal, we need to have a level playing field. We need to protect the smaller producers vis-à-vis the multinationals so that we can have a properly functioning world market. We've got a completely dysfunctional market ravaged by unfair competition, and the incomes of our farmers are falling. We've got to allow them to regroup their forces, to fight their battles, to strengthen their position, and we have got to ensure that goods are not being sold at under cost price, which is happening frequently in the market. There's all kinds of exploitative contractual arrangements. Farmers and small producers, small processing industries are simply being exploited because they have to go via large distribution companies in order to sell their goods. The Commission has got to take action here. It's absolutely essential that these sorts of distortion and these sorts of practices, which are a scourge on the market, are brought to an end. We've seen what the ravages of financial speculation can do to the market. We can now see that starvation and famine for some are profit for others. We don't want to see happening in the farm sector what we've seen in the finance sector. Since June, the price of wheat went up 70%, soya and rice similarly. Last week in Maputo, in Mozambique, 7 people were shot because they were protesting at a 30% food price increase. Now, is this the sort of thing we want to hear? Are we simply going to carry on as we have done for years, where investment banks are able to bankrupt people and others are starving? I am calling on the European Union to set up a worldwide global agency for market regulation, because I think it's high time we did this. And I would like to say to you, Commissioner, and to all of you, my colleagues, that it is time that we had a fairer CAP, fairer to farmers, fairer to consumers, and that we got rid of the distortion and unfair competition which there is in the market, which is taking its toll on so many. It's a market which is ravaged by speculation, and we have really got to make sure that if we have co-decision powers in the farm sector, we do not simply yield to pressures which are brought to bear on us from any source whatsoever. I hope that this is a clear and unequivocal message. Thank you for your attention.
Grazie. La parola. Thank you. Now, Commissioner Cholos.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Distingués membres du Parlement.
Thank you, Madam President, honourable members of Parliament. These last few months, price hikes for